Welcome to this module on leadership. We will elaborate on the model of Hersey and Blanchard about situational leadership. This model is based upon the research of Mr. Hersey and Blanchard when they were looking at situations where particular leaders either perform well or not so well. Based on their finding and their research, they developed the model of situational leadership that we are discussing now. It is based on the combination of two dimensions. First, we look at the ability of an employee, and secondly, we look at the willingness or the motivation of an employee. Now, these two together, they form what they would call the readiness for the task at hand. All the terms talk about task maturity, or we could also call it the competence. It is essential that you look at evidence of both. So it's not looking at somebody's resume and then come to the conclusion that this person indeed is able. No, you give a person a certain task. Let's say he has to write functional design on something. And then when the first results are coming, you judge the quality of this design, and based on that you decide if the person really is competent or is able to do the task at hand. The same with willingness. You look at the motivation of somebody. Is he starting to work immediately, or is he procrastinating? When he is not procrastinating, when he is really motivated, you have evidence of his motivation. So now you know two things. Your team member is either able or he is not able. He is willing or he is not willing. This is the first step. This diagnosis is the first step for determining what kind of leadership style you are going to apply. We will now study the details of the model. Look at the table at the right lower part of your slide, with the two columns willing and able. When you look at these four different combinations, we also have four different competence levels, or as we call them, readiness levels for the task at hand. There are four readiness levels. There are four leadership styles. Let's look at them and see what they entail. When you look at this picture, you see two dimensions. You see the dimension of giving direction in the top of the model, and you see the dimension of giving support. We have, corresponding to readiness level 1, we have the leadership style S1. I will come to that later. We have for R2, we have the leadership style S2. For R3, we have S3. And for R4, we have S4. As we see, S1 is giving less support and much direction. S2 is giving much support and much direction. S3 is giving less direction but much support. And S4 is giving less support and less direction. Each competence level has a corresponding leadership style, which goes from very directive to very delegating. The more capable somebody is for the task, the more ready somebody is for the task, the less you have to do as a manager. The more incompetent employee is, the more directing you have to be. Before I go into explain these four styles individually, I want you to think about each one yourself. Let's start at style S1. What kind of leadership behavior belongs to giving less support and much direction? Just think about it a few seconds, how that would look like. Let's do the same for S2. Much direction, much support. What kind of leadership behavior would you see? Now let's look at S3. This is giving much support, but less direction. What type of leadership behavior you would see. And the same for S4. The first leadership style is telling. It is a determined, ambitious, task-oriented style of leadership. The leader is here more concerned with the result than with the employee. It is cost-conscious. It's a form of one-way traffic. He gives specific assignments. He monitors the progress closely, checks and controls, and adjusts, and has very clear rules. When you would have, for example, a very junior project leader that is managing one of the sub-projects, as a project manager, you need to be very directive, very telling style of leadership. After you have given this junior project leader his assignment, you watch closely what is going to happen. Now the first thing what you would see would be that he takes on the task. He starts leading his sub-project. This is a sign of willingness. The moment he starts showing these signs of willingness, this is evidence that he is shifting from a readiness level 1 to a readiness level 2. This team member needs a different style of leadership. You shift from telling to selling. A selling leader is a motivating leader, one who makes the power difference as small as possible. He is able to unite the interest of the project and his employee. He provides direction, but he also stimulates a two-way traffic. He explains his decisions, is interested in the employee, listens, shows understanding, motivates, and is task-oriented. Notwithstanding all of this, however, he ultimately decides what will happen. This is the S2 selling style. Now you discuss with your sub-project leader his ideas about the right directions for in certain occasions. You listen very careful, you discuss with him, and you explain where he is making mistakes. At the end, you're still responsible for the decision that he has to take. And then you watch. And you watch if he is going to show signs of ability. Now the moment you see that he is doing this, that you see, well, the way he is leading a sub-project, this is actually very good, this is the moment that you need to shift to another leadership style. This is the shift from S2 to S3, where you stop giving much direction. This is a very essential step, because if you don't do this, your sub-project leader will always stay in the low readiness levels, and this is something you don't want. This S3 leadership style is about participating. It is about being on the same level and trying to help the sub-project leader to find his own way. At this readiness level, it is the best to put the emphasis on the personal development of the team member. You need to create a safe atmosphere of trust. You give a lot of space. It is important that your team member makes his own decisions, and you need to support him. Point out to his personal responsibility. Don't start helping him in the decisions he has to make. The only thing you need to do is to create self-confidence within the employee. This new responsibility is often accompanied with a kind of hiccup in the willingness. And one of the pitfalls you can fall into is that as a project manager you just start selling again. But this is not something you should do. You need to trust your team member that he is able to do the task that he is assigned to. Now we start looking, and then we see that he actually gets motivated. He starts solving his own problems. And at that moment, when we have evidence of that, you shift from the leadership style S3 to the leadership style S4. This style is called delegating. It is the dream of every manager. Employees that are doing their task, and the only thing you have to do is to decide upon which progress procedures you have, the way they report to you, and then you just wait and trust that your employees are really doing the work that they are assigned to.